Have you ever heard a sentence so sharp it carved a wound inside you? Not a physical one, but the kind that sits quietly in your chest, haunting you long after the moment has passed. Maybe it came from someone you respected or someone you loved. A jab disguised as feedback, a quiet dismissal of your worth. And though the words were brief, the echo was deafening. We live in a world that celebrates quick comebacks, viral retorts, the clamor of clapping back. But what if I told you that true strength isn't in the reply, but in the restraint? What if the path to real confidence begins not in the need to defend yourself, but in your refusal to be shaken? You see, most people react to criticism as if it's an attack. Their body tightens. Their pride rises like a shield. And before they even understand the message, they're already bleeding from the imagined wound. But what if criticism wasn't an arrow meant to wound, but a mirror meant to reflect? What if it's not meant to break you, but to build you? Today, I want to talk to the part of you that's tired of feeling fragile. The part that has shrunk in the face of judgment. The part that wants to stop spiraling every time someone has something to say about your life, your work, your truth. Because criticism, when seen through the lens of stoicism, isn't something to fear. It's something to study, to use, to transcend. In a time when opinions are cheap and outrage is currency, the ability to remain grounded under judgment is not just a skill, it's a form of spiritual self-defense. And in this video, I'll show you how the ancient Stoics mastered this. How Marcus Aurelius responded to Roman scorn. How Epictetus, a former slave, turned insults into insight. How Seneca wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. We'll walk through the emotional weight of criticism, the quiet tools that build resilience, and the mental reframing that turns harsh words into sacred instruction. Not theory, not fluff, but a way to walk through life unbothered, unbroken, and unshaken. If you've ever been wounded by words, if you're tired of giving away your peace every time someone opens their mouth, then stay. This video is for you. And if you find value in this journey, if you want more truth, more stillness, more strength rooted in ancient wisdom, then consider subscribing to Stoic now. It's more than a channel. It's a place to remember who you are beneath the noise. So take a deep breath, because we're about to walk through the fire, not to be burned by it, but to be forged. It happened in the middle of a Monday meeting, the kind where people sip lukewarm coffee, nod politely, and wait for their turn to speak. I was presenting a new idea, a proposal I'd spent the weekend refining, pouring my energy into every detail. As I finished, I looked up, expecting at least a nod. Maybe a question. Instead, my manager leaned back in her chair, smirked slightly, and said, "That's a little idealistic, don't you think?" The room fell quiet. I forced a smile, laughed it off. But inside, something crumbled. I replayed that moment for days. Her tone, the subtle dismissal, the fact that no one defended me. That comment burrowed deep, whispering things I thought I'd grown out of. "You're not smart enough. You don't belong here. Why did you even speak?" That's the strange power of criticism. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers in just the right frequency to shake your core. And yet, something happened later that week. I came across a passage from Marcus Aurelius. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." I read that line over and over, not as a philosopher, but as a man trying to stand up from an emotional punch. It hit me. Her words weren't the real wound. My reaction was, I had given away my peace, handed over my self-worth like it was hers to shape. And in that moment, I realized the real danger isn't criticism. It's what we allow it to become. Think about it. Have you ever been caught in that spiral? One sentence becomes a story. One look becomes a judgment. And suddenly, you're carrying someone else's opinion like a weight chained to your identity. But here's the truth. Not all criticism is poison. Some of it is truth in a rough form. Some of it is projection. Some is noise. Your job isn't to absorb it all, but to filter it with reason. The Stoics never taught us to avoid pain. They taught us to confront it with clarity, to pause when insulted, to reflect when rejected, to ask, is there truth here? Or is this just another test of my perception? That Monday meeting didn't ruin me. It revealed me. It showed me the weak places in my armor, the parts still dependent on approval. And slowly, I began to see that moment not as a failure, but as a forge. From that day on, I made a quiet decision, not to defend every idea, not to win every opinion, but to master my own reaction. Because in that reaction lies the one thing no one can take, your peace. And if you've ever felt like a single comment cut deeper than it should have, you're not alone. But you are stronger than that moment. And the next time criticism comes, and it will, you'll be ready to meet it like a stoic, unshaken, unoffended, unmoved. Why criticism can shape or shatter you. Criticism doesn't always arrive like thunder. Often, it creeps in like a shadow, quiet, unassuming, and deeply invasive. A single comment, a disapproving glance, an offhand remark. These small fragments slip past our defenses and start rewriting how we see ourselves. One moment you're standing tall, and the next, you're questioning your worth over a stranger's opinion or a friend's careless words. This isn't weakness. It's biology. Research from UCLA shows that social rejection activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. To the brain, being dismissed or criticized feels like being struck. It's no wonder our shoulders tense, our stomachs tighten, our thoughts race. The mind, trying to protect us, becomes hyper-alert, looking for danger, replaying the moment again and again like a broken reel. But here's where the damage deepens, not in the event, but in our interpretation of it. The Stoics were clear. What hurts us isn't the thing itself, but our judgment of it. As Epictetus said, men are not disturbed by things, but by the views which they take of them. And yet, in the heat of criticism, we rarely remember that truth. Instead, we internalize. We rehearse failure. We start speaking to ourselves in the voice of our critics. The insult becomes an identity, and without realizing it, we carry that version of ourselves into the next conversation, the next risk, the next dream. It starts small. You hesitate to share your ideas. You downplay your ambitions. You shrink your presence just enough to feel safe. But over time, that caution calcifies into a cage. You stop trusting your voice. You forget your worth. All because you never paused to question, was that criticism even true? The real danger isn't criticism, it's silence. The silence that follows when you stop showing up because someone once told you you weren't enough. The silence that grows louder the longer you avoid facing the pain. But this is where Stoicism offers a radical shift. You don't need to run from criticism. You don't need to fear it. You need to examine it. Ask, what part of this stings because it's true? What part feels heavy because I've carried it for too long without questioning it? What part of me is still waiting for the approval I never needed? This isn't easy work. It's soul work. It's sitting with discomfort until it becomes instruction. And in that sacred space between reaction and response, you reclaim your strength. You begin to understand that criticism is not your enemy. It's a reflection, sometimes accurate, sometimes distorted, but always offering you a choice, to shrink or to sharpen. So the next time criticism finds you, pause, breathe, remember who you are, and ask yourself, not why did they say that, but what can I take from this that makes me wiser, stronger, freer? That's the shift. That's the alchemy. That's where your peace begins. Picture the year 174 AD. Rome, empire of marble and might, is at war. Its borders trembling, its people divided. And in the heart of it all sits a man, not a conqueror in gold, but a philosopher in robes. Marcus Aurelius, the last of the 5 good emperors. A ruler not obsessed with glory, but with virtue. Yet even Marcus, revered as he is today, was not spared the sting of criticism. Behind closed doors, Roman senators called him too soft. His mercy, they whispered, made him weak. His refusal to rule with an iron fist left some questioning his fitness to lead. Even his own generals, hardened by blood and conquest, murmured doubts about a man who dared to quote Epictetus in wartime. But Marcus didn't strike back. He didn't build statues in his honor to drown out their words. Instead, he turned to his journal, a private meditation he never intended the world to read. There, he wrote not to prove them wrong, but to remind himself what mattered. If anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake, I'll gladly change, he penned. It's the truth I'm after. That sentence alone carries the weight of 1,000 arguments. Imagine being the most powerful man in the world and still choosing humility over pride, still choosing to listen, still choosing to learn. That's the Stoic way. To see criticism not as humiliation, but as a mirror, not as a wound, but as a window into who we are and who we might become if we stop resisting truth. Think about that. In our world today, where every disagreement feels like war, where the instinct is to defend, attack, retaliate, how rare is the man who simply listens? How rare is the leader who hears an insult and asks, "Is there any part of this I can use to grow?" That's what Marcus did. Not because he was emotionless, but because he trained his emotions like a soldier trains his sword. With discipline, with awareness, with purpose. He understood that ego is loud, but wisdom is quiet. That strength isn't proven in how many enemies you silence, but in how well you govern your own mind. So what do we learn from him? That criticism, even when it hurts, can be sacred. That being misunderstood does not mean being wrong. And that true power lies not in applause, but in alignment with virtue. Marcus walked through the fire of judgment and chose not to be burned, but refined. And that same choice is yours. Whether you're criticized at work, questioned by friends, or doubted by those closest to you, the opportunity remains. To choose reflection over reaction. To choose clarity over chaos. To choose wisdom over woundedness. Because if a Roman emperor can pause in the heat of criticism to seek truth instead of validation, then so can we. Criticism is inevitable. It comes wrapped in blunt honesty or hidden beneath sarcasm. It might arrive from a stranger online, a colleague in a meeting, or someone you love. And when it lands, we often feel it not just in our minds, but in our bodies. A tightness in the chest, a flicker of heat in the face, a clenched jaw. That's not weakness, it's instinct. The body preparing for war, even when the battlefield is only words. But the Stoics offer us a different kind of armor. They teach us that the power is not in stopping criticism, but in choosing how we respond to it. In that sacred space between what is said and how we react lies our greatest strength. And here's how you claim it. First, pause. Do nothing, at least for a moment. Let the words sit. Let the emotion settle. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That pause is not weakness. It's wisdom. It allows you to observe the situation instead of becoming consumed by it. Second, separate emotion from evaluation. Ask yourself, what's the actual message here, stripped of tone, bias, or delivery? Are they offering a truth you've resisted? Or is this more about their projection than your performance? Third, seek the truth, even if it stings. Epictetus advised, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. In other words, if the criticism hits a nerve, maybe that nerve needs attention. Not punishment, but curiosity. What is this moment trying to teach you? Fourth, respond with clarity, not ego. This might mean saying, "Thank you for the feedback. I'll consider that." Or it might mean saying nothing at all, because silence can be a boundary. Silence can be strength. Not everything requires a defense. Not every jab deserves a counterpunch. Finally, release it. You don't have to carry it. If the criticism holds truth, grow from it. If it doesn't, let it go like breath in cold air. Disappear. Seneca said, "He who does not know how to be silent will not know how to speak. And he who cannot let go will never be free." Imagine living with that kind of poise, where feedback doesn't rattle you, where judgment doesn't define you, where you walk through criticism as calmly as a monk through a storm, untouched, observing, still. That's the Stoic way. It's not about being indifferent. It's about being sovereign, unmoved not because you don't feel, but because you've learned to lead your feelings, not follow them. You will be criticized again. That's certain. But what's uncertain, what's yours to decide, is how you meet it. And when you meet it with this kind of clarity, you don't just handle criticism, you transform it. Criticism as the fire that sharpens the sword. There's a moment, right after the sting of criticism, where time seems to stretch. It's brief, almost imperceptible, but it holds the entire weight of your character. That moment is a forge, because in that space, you have a choice. You can recoil, replay, resent, or you can refine. This isn't poetic idealism. It's the Stoic truth. Every judgment aimed at you becomes an invitation, not to collapse, but to carve yourself sharper, not to defend your ego, but to discipline your mind. That's the real fire, not the flame of others' opinions, but the heat you use to temper your own soul. Criticism can't destroy you unless you cooperate with it. That's why Marcus Aurelius, under the weight of empire and endless scrutiny, still chose reflection over revenge. That's why Epictetus, who had every reason to hate the voices that mocked him, chose philosophy over bitterness. And it's why yes, you, have more strength than you believe. The world will not stop offering its judgments. You will still be told you're too quiet, too intense, too bold, too much, or not enough. But you must learn what the Stoics knew. You are not what others say about you. You are what you choose to become after hearing them. Let criticism be a kind of sacred fire. Let it burn away the illusion that everyone must like you. Let it reveal the places you've outgrown. Let it test your pride and remind you that peace is louder than applause. Because here's the truth most never realize. When you no longer fear criticism, you become unstoppable. Not arrogant, not reckless, but grounded, clear, free. You'll speak your truth more boldly, not because you don't care what others think, but because you care more about integrity than approval. You'll listen to feedback, not as judgment, but as data. You'll seek wisdom wherever it hides, even in the harshest voices. And most importantly, you'll walk through the world with a heart that's open and a mind that's sovereign. That is the quiet power Stoicism offers. So, if this message stirred something in you, if some part of you is tired of shrinking, tired of reacting, tired of carrying opinions like heavy stones, then let this be your turning point. I invite you to share your story in the comments. A moment when someone's words pierced you and what you did with that pain. Not for attention, but for connection. Because every time one of us chooses reflection over reaction, we strengthen the whole. And if you found value in this journey, if it gave you a new lens, a new calm, a new kind of courage, then consider subscribing to Stoic now. Like this video, if it brought you something real. Share it with someone you care about, someone who might be struggling in silence. We're not here to escape the world. We're here to face it with strength, clarity, and grace. Let others throw their words. Let us forge our peace. And when they speak again, we will still be standing. Not cold, not closed,